저기 제일 꼬치를 다졌어. Ma da lì si vede? Vi piace l'ultima fila? Perché non venite da questa parte? No. C'è tutto questo spazio. Volete stare appizzicati? Allora, bene, buon pomeriggio e diamo inizio al secondo appuntamento del nostro ciclo di seminari sull'Eurasia, Asian Community in Europe. E oggi abbiamo come ospite il professor dell'Università di Vienna, Adams Bodomo. So first of all, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I really hope you can enjoy your journey, your stay in Siena. Thank you so much. Oggi abbiamo il suo intervento Cross-Cultural Communication Between Chinese and African. In queste 5 edizioni è la prima volta che ospitiamo uno studioso che si occupa anche del mondo africano, ma in questo caso, come vedete anche dal titolo, è anche legato al mondo cinese, quindi sarà sicuramente di grande interesse. Non rubo più il tempo, lascio la parola al professore Raymond per la presentazione del nostro ospite.
Bene, buongiorno a tutte e tutti, ma giusto alcune parole, presentare il professore Adams Bonomo, come è stato detto, insegna presso l'Università di Vienna, attualmente, prego, quindi la cattedra di linguistica africana, appunto presso l'Università di Vienna. I suoi ambiti di ricerca naturalmente si orientano prevalentemente verso la linguistica generale, ma anche la linguistica africana, ma tutto il discorso legato alla diaspora africana. Appunto è direttore della Global Diaspora Studies Research Unit at the University of Vienna e naturalmente la sua presenza qui è giustificata dai suoi studi diciamo legati anche al mondo dell'Asia. Infatti è stato più volte appunto in Cina, dove ha tenuto diverse lezioni e ha pubblicato recentemente un testo molto importante dal titolo African Migration and Diasporization in China and Other Parts of Asia, e quindi questo nell'ambito del suo percorso cerca di analizzare il comportamento linguistico e non solo degli africani che risiedono in Africa. E appunto nell'ambito del suo intervento cercherà di illustrare brevemente i risultati delle sue ricerche in questo ambito. Quindi do la parola con grande piacere al professor Bonomo. You have the chair. Thank you very much for being here. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Sebechu. Let me begin by thanking your professors for bringing me here, beginning with Professor Sebechu, who is the chairman, and Professor Imsuk, who is he over there, and Professor Ditoro, and all the other people whose names I haven't come across yet, but I'm sure I'll get to know them later. So thank you all for your interest in my topic. I'm very happy to come to this beautiful city. I haven't been to Tuscany. I mean, have been to Rome. I mean, I went there many years ago, but this time I'm here in the middle of Italy, in Tuscany, in the beautiful city of Siena. So thanks to everybody for bringing me here. I was asked to talk about cross-cultural communication between Chinese and Africans. Should I come near there or something? No. As you all know, let me make some preliminary remarks. As you all know, cross-cultural communication is very important. You know, I'm sure your professors have made you know this, that cross-cultural communication is very important. Any two people who meet from different cultures and try to interact are doing cross-cultural communication. The topic itself has been there a long time ago, since Edward T. Hall, who published a book in 1959, the year I was born. And so this topic has been with us for long. And so it's a very important topic, and I hope that in the course of time, we can all discuss how these two people from different cultures meet. This talk is based on 4 of my works, besides my book, which is also here. So I brought along my book. So this is a key book that I wrote on Africans in China. But beyond this book, my colleagues and I have done work on cross-cultural communication on these 4 topics that you see here. So each of them has a different dimension. But I decided to find a way so that I can talk about it in some way. So, but any question time, we can always talk about any of these. So I look at cross-cultural communication from different levels. For example, in one of the articles, I talk about cross-cultural communication between government, so at the government to government levels. As you know, Africa and China have been collaborating at different, at the government to government level through fora such as the FOCAC, Forum for Africa-China Cooperation, and also the Belt and Road Initiative. So these are fora in which African governments have, in fact, at one point in time, about 40 or 30 to 40 African leaders found themselves in Beijing, far more than even at the UN. And so what are they doing there? They are communicating. They are collaborating. They are talking. And so I did some research at that level where I showed that the relationship was more of an asymmetrical note, where the Chinese people talk more, they propose a lot of things, and you don't hear much from the Africans. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. We can talk about that later on. Today, I'm going to bring it down to the people-to-people level. So there is cross-cultural communication at government-to-government levels. But there's also cross-cultural communication at the people-to-people level. This is what my talk is about today. Okay? All right. So I will structure my lecture according to these contents. I don't know what time the chairman will give me, but I will structure my lecture according to that. He can always tell me when to stop. But so I will do a brief introduction of the African presence in China. I will talk about African communities in China. I'll talk about terminology and methodological issues, a few things about demographics and social-linguistic profiles of Africans in Guangzhou, because my lecture is going to be mostly specifically on Africans in Guangzhou. You can talk about cross-cultural communication between Africans and Chinese in China, between Africans and Chinese in Africa, but I want to concentrate on cross-cultural communication between Africans and Chinese in Guangzhou. In a market, communication, cross-cultural communication is better studied in specific contexts. So I have chosen to look at this in a specific market situation where people are interacting. It's hard to just do cross-cultural communication in different contexts, but you have to do it. It's better to do it if you're doing a survey, to do it in a specific context. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I've done. And I'll also look at the rise of what I call, or what me and my colleagues call, calculator communication. Calculator, communication. So that's what we'll do. And then I'll go down to the socio-linguistic implications of such attempts at bridging communication among different cultures. And then I'll conclude. And then we can do a few questions and answers. Yeah. So that is how I intend, that's the journey I intend for us to pursue. You can always stop me and ask me questions at any time. So let us take a look at the African presence in China. The I didn't speak Italian, but I heard Professor Sebechu introduce me as having done work on diaspora studies. By the way, Italian is very interesting. Because, I mean, I don't speak, but whenever I try to get French to help me, I kind of get many of the things. So it's a Romance language, right? So kind of gets a few of the things. So I was understanding a few of the things. So we was talking about diaspora, which is which is the same thing. So African diaspora, you can find it in many parts of the world. You can find it in the US, you can find it here in Europe. But at the turn of the millennium, we began to see a lot of Africans in China. And so scholars who have studied this diaspora presence often term it Africa's newest diaspora. I don't know if there's going to be, it's going to continue being Africa's newest diaspora. Maybe somewhere in future we can find Africans in Greenland and we can call it Africa's newest diaspora. But for now, we call the African presence in China Africa's newest diaspora. Okay, so far, do you understand me? Yeah, am I clear enough? Should I be slower or faster? Just let me know. So now, there are historical contexts for this Africa's newest diaspora, right? It is not that Africans weren't in China before all this, before the turn of the millennium that I was talking about. But Africans began to go to China more in more substantial numbers, in more critical mass numbers, during what is called the post-war, the post-WTO. What is the post-WTO? China joined the WTO, the World Trade Organization, around the turn of the millennium, 2001, and they opened up markets. And so Africans began to go there. So since this entry into the WTO, there has been a dramatic, increase of Africans in China, for trade mostly. So the numbers of Chinese traders, thank you, exceeds the diplomatic, numbers. So they exceed diplomats, they exceed students, making them significant presence, having a significant presence in cities like Guangzhou. Now, why Guangzhou of all the Chinese cities? Why not Beijing? Why not Shanghai? Why not the other cities? But why Guangzhou? Because it is in itself, Guangzhou it has warm weather. It is, more importantly, what is called the world's factory. So Guangzhou is Guangdong as a whole. Guangzhou is a city. Guangdong is a province. Guangdong is the world's factory. Why do we say this? Because many of the things produced in China come from this province. And so the Africans are attracted to this booming, bustling, industrial, manufacturing zone. That's why they go there. It's not that Africans are not in Beijing. It's not that they're not in Shanghai, in Wuhan, but Africans are more in Guangzhou than in any other city in China. The other city is Yiwu, but I won't talk about Yiwu today. One of my students is doing a thesis on Yiwu. So in terms of geographical distribution and concentration, these Africans, as I mentioned, I was ahead of myself. They are in Guangzhou, Yiwu, Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Macau. I lived in Hong Kong for more than 10 years. They are also in Guangzhou, in Hong Kong, but they are more in Guangzhou and Macau as well. Guangzhou in particular has a large African community. And in areas of Guangzhou, what's called the Tianxiu building. I don't know how many of you have been to Guangzhou. How many of you here have been to Guangzhou? No? Okay. So in this city, there's a part of the city called Tianxiu building. And it is also called Chocolate City by the Chinese because of the African presence there. The Chinese consider that African skin is like chocolate. So, so they also call it Chocolate City. What is the demographic profile of this Chocolate City? What is the demographic profile of the African presence in this city? It is predominantly male. At the time I did the research, I've gone back there several times. I haven't been back there since the COVID, but I will go back there now that the COVID seems to be disappearing. It is predominantly male. Why? Because usually African males would go to a place first to find out before females come. But as I speak now, there are more females now. There are also many females now. So one can see it as maybe 50-50. But at the time I did the research, it was mostly male. They contribute to cultural exchanges, such as introducing African cuisine and organizing cultural displays. In fact, my first fufu is a common African dish. I don't know if you know fufu. Anybody know fufu? Of course, Raymond, Professor Sewaji knows. But my first fufu in Guangzhou was actually made by a Chinese cook who was working for the African community chairman. The African community chairman had a restaurant, and he employed a Chinese who learned how to make fufu. And it's fascinating, you know. So, so that's already, you can see cross-cultural contacts there. So now, the issue about this presence in China, African presence in China, is that, you know, most Africans go there. I'm not talking about students. The students, when they go there, they learn Chinese for about 1 year before they do their courses. A student who goes there to do medicine or maybe physics or chemistry or geography or any, first of all, learns Chinese for 1 year. So after 1 year, they can communicate. But the traders, a trader can just get up in Accra or in Yaoundé and pick up, you know, his bag or her bag and just go to Guangzhou without knowing how to speak the language. And so many of the Africans who go there don't know how to speak Chinese. So English, but also in China, of course, English is taught in China, but it's taught as a foreign language. So people are not very fluent in English. They speak their Chinese, their language, all right. And so despite this, English being taught in China, only 7.3%. One of my Chinese students got this number for me. Only 7.3% of Chinese people use it often, and it is rarely used in daily life. This creates significant communication barriers between the Africans and the Chinese. They mostly, when they go to Guangzhou, they mostly speak English and French. Of course, they also speak their African languages, but we'll come to that. They speak it among themselves. And so this creates an issue whereby there is language proficiency issue. So most Africans have good, excellent English proficiency, but only 10% have good Chinese. So while Chinese have only 7% of Chinese speak English, only 10% of Africans speak Chinese. I mean, from my research that I did later on. So this mismatch leads to frequent communication problems in daily interactions. And so this is also a context for multilingualism and a context for mixture of things, including identity issues and all that. So Africans in China often identify with their, and when you ask, a very interesting thing when I was doing my research, when I